Good afternoon, students. Are you hearing my voice? Are you hearing my voice?
Okay, sir. Hearing.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, in our early classes, we are discussing about the social religious reform movements. Among the social religious reform movements, we covered general reform movements, particularly Raja Ram Mohan Rai and Brahma Samaj, Dayanand Saraswati and Arya Samaj, and M.G. Ranade and Pradhana Samaj, and Univicent Theosophical Society. Likewise, we covered the major religious reform movements, particularly which started in 19th and 20th centuries. Okay, so the remaining things which just somewhat different with these common reform movements, like the reform movements within the Parsi community, reform movement within the Sikhs, and reform movement in the Islamic society. Okay, so the reform which taken place in the Islamic society is Aligarh movement. We already covered Aligarh movement with contribution of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan's a contribution we already covered within in the two classes, in last two classes. Okay, today we're going to see about the Parsi reform movement. Okay, so you are well aware that the Parsi community is a advanced community which settled on the western part of Indian territories. Particularly, they concentrate on the western territories like Maharashtra and Gujarat. Okay. Till today, you can observe the same community which which um, uh, 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 which living on the on living in particular territories. Okay, western territories, because they were the migrants long back. You are well aware that they are from the Central Asian part, particularly the Persian territories. They came to India along with the Islamic migrants. So all these Islamic and Parsi migrants who in initial days they were concentrate on the western part, and gradually they are entering in the other parts of Indian territory. Okay, so likewise they were scattered in all over the Indian locations, but the majority of the people they are only in the western part of India. Okay, so all the reforms which started in the Bombay and Gujarat areas, the major contribution is from the Parsis only. Okay, so each and every reform movement which started within the western part having certain background of this Parsi community. Okay, so within not only they contribution in the general socio-religious reforms, and they have their they have their own reform movement which mobilize their own community or their own society also. Okay, so we'll see what are the important these a, a Parsi movements which started basically in the reform of this Parsi community. Okay, so I will go with these things one by one, and I will give you certain background of these Parsi community which entered in Indian territories, and then I'll go with the various reform or various reformers who spread their idealistic reform, otherwise reformic ideology within the Parsi community. Okay, so you are well aware that the Parsi community is a community basically having their basically they called as the trading or merchant class, and they having the business mind. Okay, so the majority of the trade and commerce which in India having the great contribution of by this community only. Okay, so I will give you a detailed description of this reform movement in Parsi community. Just I'll give you certain important things to background to this community. Okay, so Zoroastrians persecuted in the Persian homeland migrated in large numbers to the west coast of India in 19th 10th century. As a trading community, they flourished over the centuries. As a close knit community, it too was not left untouched by the reform movements of the 19th century. Okay, so Parsi religious rituals and practices were reformed and the Parsi creed redefined. In the social sphere, attempts were made to uplift the status of Parsi women through education, removal of the parda, raising the age of marriage, and likewise. And gradually, the Parsis emerged as the most westernized section of the Indian society. They played a key role in nationalist movement and in the industrialization of India. Okay, so they have their great contribution within the Indian national movement, and also they have a majority of the major contribution within the industrialization of India. Okay, so the major industries were in the hands of these Parsis only, right? So you are well aware that the Indian National Congress, one of the a body which carried the Indian national movement, which is which is taken a great economical assistance from these Parsis itself. Okay, so like Jamanlal Bajaj and others who were had the certain contribution toward the Indian National Congress. They are the a great friends of Mahatma Gandhi also. Okay, so when you see the certain background, one the great branch of Indo-European race lived long before the Christian era, somewhere in Central Asia to the south of Oxus River. This group finally broke into two, the eastern wing passing into India and creating its civilization, the western colonizing Iran and producing a Zoroastrian religion and the Persian Empire. On the rise of Islam, Arab armies marched both east and west, conquering every part of every power that came in their way. The overthrow of Persia was complete. In their new zeal for their religion, the Muslim warriors offered the Persians the choice of Islam or the sword. So only a remnant of the people were able, by escaping to the wilds of the north, to retain both life and religion. Even there, they were so much harassed that a great company of them left Persia together and found their way into the province of Gujarat and Western India. Okay, so likewise, they want to save the harass of this Islamic community, and they just entered in um, Indian territories through the Western way. Okay, so there the Hindus allowed them to settle under very definite conditions. Their exiles took root and prospered. Bombay is now their greatest center. Okay, so but they were still found in Gujarat, and small groups reside in each of the great commercial centers of the country because they have the business background. Okay, so they call themselves Parsis, that is the Persians, and they number about 100,000. And now their number may be increased to certain lakh. Okay, so they brought with them certain copies of their sacred books, but the disasters of their country had played terrible havoc with its sacred literature. The people ascribed their most serious losses to Alexander the Great, but it is not known how far the destruction of the Avesta is due to him or the later conquerors. Okay, so these are certain last to these Parsis, but when entered in India, again they started their own life as a normal life. Okay, so as the Hindus and the Parsis are sister peoples, so the Zoroastrian religion and Hindu faith have good deal in common. The religious reform introduced by Zoroaster did for the Persians a larger and more fruitful service than that done for the Hindus by the Vedanta philosophy. Okay, you are well aware that you can observe certain similar things, the similar religious things among these Zoroastrianism and the Hinduism. Okay, so certain similar god and goddesses also you find. You find certain rituals, traditions within the Hinduism and Zoroastrianism having certain common features. Okay, so likewise, there is a certain relation or a association with these Hindus with the Parsis had a, 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 a great a great thing you can observe here, right? So here but monotheism and the ethics of Zoroaster had worked a greater revolution than a Vedanta produced, yet the religion still chewed their ancient kinship. Consequently, when a small band of hunted fugitives carrying with them the precious fragments of their natural literature settled in a Hindu environment, they found themselves in a somewhat congenial company, and despite their exclusiveness, their life and the conceptions necessarily felt the influence of the powerful community in the midst of which they were settled. Okay, so among their community, you find certain social levels like the social levels in the Hinduism or Hindu society. So child marriages and the Janana became universal among them. Okay, so child marriage and Janana both are great traditions they followed extensively. Okay, so the child marriage and Janana became universal among them. Polygamy was not uncommon. Okay, so it's not a uncommon. It's somewhat you find a common thing. So the men ate separately from the women. Many were ready to recognize Hindu festivals and worship. The Parsis priesthood became a hereditary caste. Religious, social, and legal questions were settled according to Hindu customs by a small body called the Panchayat. Okay, so likewise, the Hindu society, the Parsi had certain social levels in in their own society. Okay, so in 1849, they started certain schools for the boys and girls for the community, because many Parsi educated intellectual class, they had a certain association with the British employees mainly. Okay, because these Parsis was a business background, and they were the class of merchants and traders. They are moving from one place to another easily, and they can easily mingle with the new people also. And likewise, they attracted the English education and the Western education, so that those the Parsis aware with this English education and Western education, they were they gradually changed their ideology, and they gradually following the rituals and traditions of the Western society. Okay, so likewise, they want to mobilize, or they want to aware their society towards the Westernization, and towards the English education. Okay, so in same context, they started certain schools and colleges. Okay, so you are well aware that there are many reformers from this community, and they have played an important role in the Indian National Congress. Among them, Dadabhai Nauroji, a important national leader who uh, uh, who who played a important role in the Indian National Congress, and he had a great contribution in Indian economy. Okay, so he was the first Indian economist who measured the Indian national income, and he was the first Indian economist who identified the drain of wealth to the European nations. Okay, so after Dadabhai Naoroji, SS Bengali, also an important reformer who had a great contribution to uplift this Parsi community. Okay, so in 1849, they started schools for the boys and girls of the community, so that no child should have to go without education. As the panchayat had lost all power over community and reform was seriously needed, a group of initial influential and wealthy Parsis and number of young men fresh from Elphinstone College formed in 1851, a association called as Religious Reform Association, in Parsi called as Rahunamai Mazda Snan Sabha. Okay, so Rahmane Rahunmai Mazdasana Sabha, or the Religious Reform Association, which had for its object the regeneration of the social condition of Parsis, and the restoration of Zoroastrian religion to its uh, pristine purity. Okay, so they want to restore the Zoroastrianism, and they want to see the pure Zoroastrianism within their community, and to revive the Zoroastrianism, they started a separate religious reform association, is nothing but Rahunumai Mazdas and Sabha. Okay, so uh, the more notable men in this group were Dadabhai Nauroji, J.B. Vacha, S.S. Bengali, and Nauroji Fardonji, and many other Farsis reforms you find. Okay, so they established at the same time the Rast Gofar, or the truth teller, a weekly journal which proved a powerful instrument in their hands. Okay, so Goftar, also a important journal, mainly edited by Dadabhai Nauroji, and which is a important weapon to these Farsi reformation. Okay, so by the lectures, meetings, and literature, they stirred the community, to its death with their proposals of reform. At the first, they encountered a great deal of opposition from the Orthodox, but they preserved and at last achieved a considerable success. Okay, so initial days they had certain deal with orthodoxy class of Parsi, and later they gradually mobilized those class also. Okay, so in 1858, a group of educated Parsis started a movement for helping their brethren, the remnant of old Zoroastrianism of Persia, now known as the Gabas, who were very seriously oppressed the Shah's government. Okay, so Gabas, a community having the ideology with the orthodoxy, and they opposed this such a reform movement or reformers within the Parsis in initial stages. Okay, so after 24 years of hesitation, they were released in 1882 from the poll tax jizya, which weighed heavily upon them. The Parsis have also associated with personnel. Okay, so Shash government, it is not in Indian territories what happened, but it is the Shash government in the Persia. Okay, so they oppose the certain things, the which is oppose, which is not suitable for their society, which is implemented by certain governments, and then onwards they questioning the wrong things by the government at that time. Okay, so gradually they also questioned the wrong things which identified within the Parsi society also. Okay, likewise, they are questioning the wrong things in the society. Okay, so a little later, a new element was introduced. A young man belonging to one of the great commercial families, Karshedsi Rastumji Kama. Okay, so KR Kama went to Europe on business, and before he returned to Bombay in 1859, proceeded to the continent where he studied the Avesta in the original under the greatest Avestan scholars of Europe. And what he did in Bombay from 1861 onwards had better to be told in the words of one of a correspondent. On his return to Bombay, he began teaching a few disciples the Avesta, the Parsi scriptures by the Western methods, and comparative study of Iranian languages and grammar. The most famous of his disciples were Sherarji Barucha, who is still alive, and Temersp Ankleshwariya, a most distinguished scholar of Pahlavi, who died about 10 years ago, and Kasauji Kanga, also important person who just mobilized with Vacha. Okay, so mobilized with the Kama, right? Okay, so he also helped largely in the foundation of two madrasas or institutions devoted to the study of Iranian language and scriptures. Okay, so the Parsi mode of life may be described to be an electric ensemble of European and of Hindu. Okay, so the many of Parsis who attracted towards the Western education, and they gradually journey, gradually moving to the European nations, and they getting a better education there with world-class universities, and by returning to their own community again, they started the mobilization. They mobilized, started mobilizing their own community with certain changes, which they got certain changes in their ideology. Okay, so they followed a balanced ideology here, and they're following their own traditions and language and religion. Gradually, they followed the Western ideology, and without giving any heart or without hurting their own traditions and own religion. Okay, So whatever the wrong things or blind beliefs in their own community or their religion, they are easily they are kept them away from their own men. Okay, their own society. Okay, not giving any hurt to the people of their own community. Okay, so one side they are giving respect to their own traditions and rituals, and other side they are following the westernization. Okay, so westernization of their ideology and westernized education, and they also followed a close association with the European officials. Okay, so the Parsi mode of life may be described to be an electric ensemble of European and of Hindu, and they also having certain close association with Hindus also. Okay, they are maintaining certain balanced relation with the Hindus and with Europeans. Okay, so as they advance every year in civilization and enlightenment, they copy more closely English manners and modes of living. Okay, so they are following their own traditions, following the Hindu traditions, and they are also following the European traditions within their way of life. Okay, so likewise, they are balanced very easily. They are balanced very easily. Okay, so Mr. B.M. Malbari, a Parsi government servant who later became a journalist, exercised a very wide and powerful influence in the cause of women and children in India. Okay, his pamphlet on infant marriage and enforced widowhood, published in 1887, stirred public opinion to the depths. Okay, in his journal, The Indian Spectator, he continued the struggle for more inhuman treatment for the women and children of India. Okay, so when in England in 1890, he published a pamphlet form an appeal on behalf of the daughters of India. Okay, so he published a pamphlet called an appeal on behalf of daughters of India, which powerfully moved English feeling. Finally, in 1908, in conjunction with his biographer, Mr. Dayaram Gudimal, he founded the Seva Sadan. Okay, so Seva Sadan is a contribution of B.M. Malbar, right? So, and certain conferences also they conducted, and a conference was held in April 1910, and a variety of questions, religious, social, and educational, were discussed. The need of an educated priesthood and need of serious moral and religious education in schools were strongly emphasized. But the conservatives opposed, and the violent scenes interrupted the proceedings. The result being that the gathering, which had been created by the reformers for the sake of securing a great advance, became rather a rallying center for the conservative party. Okay, so there is a certain orthodoxy followers among the Parsis who started a party called the Conservative Party, right? So, and the reformers had started certain conferences to mobilize their own community. And the first conference was held in April 1910, and the second conference held in 1911 also suffered seriously from the same causes. Okay, so when they started conducting these conferences, and the conservatives were gradually giving certain created certain problems to these reformers. Okay, so the third and fourth conferences held in 1912 and 13 were largely attended and very successful and were not made by the violent opposition. Okay, so in the third and fourth conferences, you didn't find any opposition or problems by the conservatives. It is also attended by a number of many numbers of these parties. Okay, so the membership has grown up to the 500, and the conference is pressing forward certain schemes of betterment of their community. Okay, so betterment of community, they want to revive the important rituals which actually followed by the Zoroastrianism, and they want to eradicate certain social evils in their society, and they want to educate their society on the basis of Western education or following the English education, and they want to grow financially. Okay, so these are certain important things they followed by these conducting conferences. The leaders of the progressive. Okay, so the opposition to the conservatives, there is another party you find within the Parsi community is the Progressive Party. Okay, so the Progressive Party leaders of Progressive Party were Dr. Dala, Sir P. Mehta, and Sir Didsha Petit, and you find various Tatas, JRD Tata, Jamsetdi Tata, likewise, and Ratan, not Ratan Tata, his forefathers. Okay, so Mr. H.A. Wadia and Kartaks. Okay, so these are the important personalities among the Progressive Party, and they represented with a general called as the Parsi. Okay, so these are important personalities from the Progressive Party. They started a general called as the Parsi. Okay, so the rise and growing influence of the propaganda of the Theosophic Party led in 1911 to the organization within the reforming party of society to resist and expose it. And one more party you find, which is Theosophic Party. Okay, so it is called the Iranian Association, and the following are objects of members in view. Okay, so to maintain the purity of Zoroastrianism religion, remove the excesses that have gathered around it, and to expose the counteract and the effects of such teachings of Theosophists and others as stand, and to corrupt the religion and Jatursta by adding elements foreign to it, and to bring about degeneration of a progressive and virile community like Parsis and make them a body of superstitious and unpractical visionaries, and to promote measures for the welfare of the advancement of the community. Okay, so these are certain important important things they want to follow and to reform the Parsi side. Okay, so since March 1912, the association has published the Journal of the Iranian Association, a small monthly and partly in English, partly in Gujarat. Okay, so likewise, many reformers you find within the Parsi community, and they started certain reform movements and certain parties, not those not a political parties. They are parties to reform their own society based on the various ideologies, and they gradually gradually giving importance to the education, because their main occupation is the trading. Okay, so they are following various trading various various things to be traded with various territories and various locations, and they are visiting and toured these various locations and territories, and they are not concentrate on education properly. Okay, so they are thinking that they thought that they are losing certain things without following the education. Okay, they had certain money and somewhat economical status they had, but when you see on the grounds of knowledge, they are missing something. Okay, so they want to educate themselves, and they want to get a certain knowledge more, and that knowledge to be useful to mobilize their own society. Okay, that is the main cause behind this Parsi reform movement. Okay, so these are the various things about Farsi reform movement, which happened to be happened within the Indian society. Okay, so particularly on the north, on the western part of India. Okay, so these are the certain things about this reform movement in Parsi community, and this is end of my class today, and I will give you things about reform movements within the six in tomorrow's class. Okay, so you have any doubts, clarifications, you may ask now. ఏమైనా డౌట్స్ ఉంటే అడగొచ్చు, నవీన్ కుమార్, చిన్నాగయ్య. Otherwise, I will end up my class.
No doubt, sir. Okay, sir.
No doubt. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I am going to end my class today, and I will meet you again in next class tomorrow at the same time. Okay, thank you.